Hello there folks, this is Ferenj on board again, this time today in the magical Easter day. Well, magical was more like almost satirical. Um, as a person, I said I do not accept concepts that much, and well, Easter is not something that defines me. Secondarily, I'm not, taking this as a means to feel better or different because it's just another day that people attach a meaning to. The point about this video is that I'm willing to speak again on the idea of fantasies, probably get into the aspect of fetishes a bit, and well, to continue the idea that I previously started on attachments and why fantasy is usually very strong and why people get so seduced by it, and why also fetishes can be a nuisance to deal with because for some reason people seem to indulge in them but they don't know the extent of damage they can actually do to themselves. Okay, now that I closed the window, I can actually continue. And, well, it's an awesome 11:11 on the clock, and I haven't been hunting it, so, well, let's start with sharing the wisdom. So, what is actually a fantasy, and, like, how's it been going for me lately? The point is that I've been starting to feel, somewhat older in a way, and, my passion and my hunger towards wisdom is not going down, but actually it's going up. And I feel interested in, gaining more and more wisdom of the deepest and, most advanced possible of levels. Because for some reason I just feel that that is one of my things that I have to do. I just feel that, I need to consume. And more so than that, I also need to share. So today I'm interested in sharing some of my ideas on fantasy and continue on the video I previously created, the idea of attachment. I ended up with a very lengthy video as well. So well, no one forces you to watch the video as a whole, and taking notes is very important as well if you are really interested in remembering something. So, welcome to my YouTube channel. I share a lot of things on spirituality and things that I have gotten to understand and learn through my introspection, through my connection with my guides, and well, things that I want to share with people, while also reminding them not to take everything I say for granted and consult themselves as well, because we are all here to experience our own truths and it may vary from one person to another. Now, fantasy is something that I have seen like each and everywhere, and it is depicted by a lot of artistic effort. It is a lot of creational output. Okay, it's an input, and well, the output is put, for the people to enjoy. And it's usually sceneries like this and this and this, which this one kind of reminds me of Project Nomads, video game that I actually liked for its idea. Maybe this one, which kind of reminds me a bit of the portal Samurai Jack was looking for, and we also have this little warrior there. Now the point with fantasy is fantasy is something that is created. As a dictionary definition is probably it's gonna sound like a creational process, something that does not exist in reality, but exists only in the mind of people. Now the point is, with most people and all of us, we have been taught that everything that is not outside, well, is fictional. Okay, like literally everything that is not outside being fictional, then how come we actually live? Do we actually live in a fictional world? Well, the ancients would call this world as the Maya, namely the illusion. And like in ancient Egypt, you actually had such ideas that said when you're actually going to bed and you're falling asleep, that's when you actually wake up to the real world. And this one is most likely the world in which you dream. Most likely this is the vivid dream of your existence. Now, I'm not going to dive into this because I'm not 100% certain about these things, and I require deeper and more introspection. But I'm getting closer and closer to being fully sure of the fact that the deeper you look inside, the more you find answers to everything, because everything as a sense of creation is ingrained within yourself. Your ancestors past, their fears, their achievements, literally everything they have manifested is also imprinted into you, and everything you manifest will also be imprinted into your followers, and it will influence them even 10,000 years into the future. Because for some reason Marcus Aurelius did not say that for nothing. He had a quote that said, "What we do now shall echo through the ages." Now, fantasy is something that again echoes through the ages, but the point is, we may not understand if that is actually real, or like what we actually would call as real, or it's just fictional thing created by our mind. For people who don't understand what our mind is, it's nothing else than what I call an engine of creation. Its purpose is to only create. So people who try to meditate and they cannot for some reason shut their mind down, well, the point of meditation is not to shut your mind down. That only happens when you die. Okay, like when you physically and specifically die, because death is also something that happens on birth, being an ongoing process that, well, the moment something is created, it has an expiry date, and that expiry date is proof that death is actually taking place. Death is not that single moment, right? That fraction of a second when the person is biologically proven as uh, soully departed, or whatever you want to say, right? When their consciousness is no longer functional, right? Or I don't know exactly how to put it into words. So fantasy nowadays is something that most people indulge in, and when I say indulge, is something that ends up as what I call a drug activity. They're using this as something that would distract them from who they are. Unfortunately, and well, I'm not against this, but functionally speaking, this is like moving in a loop. Why I say this is because when people indulge in something, they will have that, repeat itself. And when you repeat the same thing, okay, it's like you're suddenly turning something into your past, okay? When you have done something, it has become your past. But that thing goes through a process of attachment. That thing leaves you with some emotions, and based on those emotions, it will influence you into your future. And the point is, if you have experienced something that you like, you're definitely gonna give in to some urges. And these urges can also have to do with attachments, spiritual attachments, or thoughts you have created. When you enjoy something, you're putting memory into it. You're putting your mind capacity and emotions into that. It's the same as the process of imagining things, okay? When you imagine things, you put memory space into that. You create something, and you also attach some emotion to it. And when you do this, it's just like the law of attraction. You imagine things, okay? And through this imagining, you create a powerful force that slowly puts that thing into existence. And if you do it enough, and if the universe allows it, namely if it's actually gonna help you experience through life what you have chosen to experience, that thing will manifest itself. It is, well, some people call it the law of manifestation. When you imagine a lot of things, they may not necessarily manifest into this life. Like, for example, riding dragons. That might not manifest into this life, but you may manifest it in a dream of yours. The mind can replicate that for you, or you might even, at a higher level of existence, actually experience that. Because by putting emotion into it, you are putting to the universe the sign that you actually want to experience that. That is why people who are creative may actually end up having very lucid dreams, very vivid dreams, because by using their mind to create more than most other people would, they are creating a future for themselves, because in a way, artists no longer spin in circles. People who are only consumers, usually they indulge into something to distract them from the misery of their own life. And fantasy can actually be a very good, effective drug in this. Because by doing that, they only repeat a certain thing, okay? they are repeating an action or anything, any event in their life that gave them a positive emotion. And when you end up as being the sugar in a sea of salt, as I call it, the point is you actually attach yourself to that because by instinct, no brain, no cell, no anything that is living, nothing like that wants pain, okay? Anything and everything runs away from pain, okay? And some animals, for example spiders, are even capable of removing a part of themselves, even if for a short time it induces a lot more pain. They are able to remove that, to no longer have it as a painful, something that pulls them down, okay? For example, spiders will rip any of their broken legs, okay? They also have the natural ability to grow their legs back, which might take more or less time. But the point is, you see, that is the amount of, to the extent of which many beings are capable to go to deny pain. And humans, we indulge in a lot of things to, remove this painful existence that we call. And painful existence is nothing else than a fantasy. It is something that exists only there in your mind. That pain exists as a signal that something is wrong in your life. So you do not need another fantasy, okay, to remove a fantasy of yours. You're just gonna run away from pain, and that's not gonna be outrun, because the point is you cannot outrun something that is yours, okay? You cannot run from your own mind. It's always gonna be much faster, it's always gonna be much more vibrant, and most likely much more complex. It is actually much more complex than any one of us thinks, and we only have access to a few facets of it, but there are thousands, and we only use like the very few that society and the people around us in a way allowed us to do. And we are just carrying this pain because there is multiple type of pain, okay? Or let's call it karmic debts, okay? We have the karma of ancestors, okay? That is why in these days of enlightenment we will feel a lot of ideas that don't belong to us. We will feel probably fears of being left out by our spouse, but we're not married. We will feel fear of like failure, okay? Like fear of misfortune, but we're already misfortune. I mean, probably we are still at an age or at a situation in life when we are still financially poor, okay? We are not yet abundant, okay? And we fear this idea of becoming even poorer, but it does not belong to us. There are multiple of these ideas, okay, that present themselves to us, and the point is we just have to allow them to leave instead of pulling them back inside. Because if you pull them back inside, you keep that memory inside of you. You may have experienced that in previous lives. Your ancestors may have experienced that in previous lives. Well, of course, they are ancestors, they are before you. Your family will probably, well, actually, may have experienced this, or any other relative around you, okay? And probably you as an individual may have experienced that at a point in life that you no longer remember. Because if you don't remember anything or something, it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, okay? That's a case with, forgetful people, okay? People who have amnesia. They won't recognize things because they have forgotten them, and they have never done them just because they haven't done them, right? They don't remember that thing. So just because you don't remember something, it doesn't mean that its memory won't be there, okay? People who can read auras, people who can understand people at much deeper levels can actually do that, okay? So the point is, people create their own fantasies with like literally everything. And when you create a fantasy that your life is miserable, you are putting out so much emotion out there, okay? You're actually wanting that, but you're not conscious of the fact that you're wanting it, and you're welcoming it, okay, with the least resistance possible. And the universe only provides you what you want, okay? Also, if you actually not what you want but what you need. If you chose to experience misery in your life, and most likely to reach anything in life you need some sort of beginner misery, right? Just like in video games, you are theoretically miserable because at the beginning it's always hard. You don't have those big weapons, you don't have that cool ammo, you don't have that cool skill that can actually make a difference, right? So in order to achieve something in an existence, there has to be some kind of triggers, and usually these triggers are uh, any sort of trauma, okay? And it will take definitely a lot of lives to reach a level in which you become capable of seeing beyond the veil, okay? This idea that you're just this physicality and, this sense of fully identifying with what this physical body of yours is, and that you're only that and nothing else. When you become capable of seeing this, you're starting to understand that there is much more than just this life, and like literally everything ends up as a fantasy, okay? This is not a video about fantasy, like fantasy games and fantasy worlds. I'm trying to break down for people why people get trapped into, because adding all these negativities, usually this leads to people becoming pain numb. And when people become pain numb, they become through this desperate of feeling any emotion, because this is a way that your past becomes your future, and you're basically moving in circles. Everything that gives you a little pleasure, you're desperate to do that, and you're not even willing to do anything new, right? So when people get, they drug themselves for the first time, the point is with these people is that they finally experience what they call a way out. So again, it's the creation of another fantasy, okay? It's only in their head, okay? And when they create that sense, okay, that they have finally ridden themselves of the pain, okay, although they make themselves even more pain numb, okay, they will indulge in that because it's the easiest way. It's just like the same thing with masturbation, okay, and that's how you get into fetishes, more or less. Because the reason why masturbation occurs is because it's a memory imprint. It belongs to you, previous lives, it belongs to ancestors most likely, and you're one of the people, you're the one who can, remove that memory from yourself. That is why there are people in the world who no longer masturbate at all, because they have reached a level in which they became capable of removing that aspect from themselves. And by having done that, they are no longer affected by that imprint, okay? It can still be found in their existence, but they are no longer attached to it, okay? It can, if this is still existing in your life, it is something that exists in your ancestral existence, okay? Previous lives, your ancestors, your family, okay? People around you, the sexuality around you, parasitic, attachments onto you, which occur because of these, memory imprints, more or less. So things can be very intricate, and I don't want to overextend this video as well. So you don't need a fantasy to rid yourself of another fantasy, okay? So with masturbation, it's nothing else than, a quicker access to the idea of the hormone of happiness, okay? A hormone of happiness that you would naturally create by, creating yourself a relationship, nurturing that relationship, and eventually committing to a sexual intercourse, okay? And afterwards, through that, you would finally experience that. But masturbation is what I also call, and science calls, like instant gratification, okay? It's the much faster route, okay? So through this, you get a sense of accomplishment, but you don't know and you don't understand the amount of damage that you're causing to yourself, and how much you open yourself to the misery around, which you're instantly gonna draw in the moment you release. Because releasing that positive energy, that energy of yourself through releasing after masturbation, okay, you will draw in energy from outside, because if something gets depleted, it will get, um, replaced, okay? That's the source of nature. It's like something that's very hot, it will give out that hotness, okay, that you know that state of being hot to everything that is cold outside, because if the cold is overwhelming, the heat will start being seeded, okay? Because that which is hot sees that its state is much different, so there will be a balance, okay? That cold will also seek to become warmer, and the actually the hot, will seek to become colder until, there is a balance. Whoever will win, it depends on how much each source is capable to keep its own state. which also translates as how much each of those sources is attached to their own state. That's what also happens with people. When people come into the world, the problem is they create their own perception over the world, and then they shape themselves based on those perceptions of the world. Okay, because everything is perception. Everything is perception. The way you perceive the world is not necessarily the way the world actually is. You see? That's why disorders are also called disorders, okay? Because it's different than order, okay? That is why narcissists are specifically so, like a fully fledged one is so, because, that's their perception, okay? The misery is in their heads, but, their perception works naturally like it works, okay? They are a reminder that you are actually the liar, not them. All this time we have been taught to live life in reverse, okay, to accept things the opposite way, because this also is a way of experiencing life. Now, for fantasy, what I want to say is that you don't need a new fantasy to beat a pre-existing one. You just need to realize that some of your things, may just have been made up, and you just have to let them go. Because the moment you're not letting them go, you're gonna create attachments, emotional attachments to them. And through this, well, you're gonna keep repeating that, because you're not gonna seek anything most likely that will improve your life even further, okay? And that sensation of good is just, well, again, a possible, it's actually, an idea that you perceive, but it's not necessarily good for you. Just like with masturbation. It feels good, but it's not. It's very harmful to your body, and, what you're accepting in exchange of that, well, that's what's gonna make you even more miserable. And people will revert to this thing because they have remembered that by doing that they have felt good, so they will repeat the process again and again, and by repeating the process they become even more and more miserable, because it's a death spiral. So an event that gave them the impression and the feeling that it is good, okay, is something that they attached to, and it is in their past, and by repeating it they just repeat their past again and again and again. It's when someone makes their past become their future as well, okay, that is when someone actually moves in circle. And unfortunately many people have a very short-term memory, and well, a very short memory, and even if they do the same thing, they get the impression, or they even lie themselves, that they're doing the same thing. Now, without further ado, I'll probably continue these thoughts in another video. Happy Easter. Keep up the good work that you're doing. Remember to become more and more introspective, especially in this time, and expand your awareness, because that's what exactly this period is all about. Until next time, Ferenc on board signing out.